pretty significant job cuts. What are your takeaways?
I mean, you know, Intel's done a handful of acquisitions over the last few years as well, but also really looking at a changing market. I mean, this PC market sell-off just won't let up, and they've got to make some changes there. And I think they've seen that. This is a company, however, is loath to lay off people. People go to work at Intel. You know, if you worked at Intel for 10 years, you're one of the new kids. It's a place where people go and spend their entire lives and careers, unlike a lot of Silicon Valley. And so this is a significant thing for this company to make these changes, saying that the cuts would be both voluntary and involuntary, that is, people getting fired.
We've been listening into CEO Brian Krzanich on the earnings call. Take a listen to what he had to say about this.
So it is absolutely a situation where we're structuring to be able to allow ourselves to invest at a faster rate in those growth areas. If you take a look at it, 2016 to 2015, in the areas of memory with our NAND technology, IoT, data center. Even before this action, we were investing more in 2016 than in 2015.
Anand, some analysts are saying these job cuts were long overdue. Would you agree? And if so, why'd they take so long?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, one of the things with Intel is that it's historically been a PC-focused company. It remains that way from a top-line perspective. And they've been able to outperform. PC chip sales from Intel have done better than PC shipment growth, right? So, but that relative story can't keep up. At the end of the day, you're only going to be able to grow as fast as your underlying market. You can move things at the margin. So you have to right-size the company to focus on what's been working, and what's been working is the data center market. So they've done really well there. It's a bigger portion of operating income, a smaller portion of sales today, and this is a hard pivot, and it's a long time coming, but one that's absolutely necessary.
Now, Corey, give us some insight into the management changes that we're seeing. Renee James, for example, was promoted to president. She's no longer there. Now Stacy Smith is moving into a new role. What's your read on this?
Well, in that succession plan to put Brian Krzanich as CEO, Stacy Smith staying as CFO, and Renee James as president and COO, that clearly didn't work. Renee James didn't last there for terribly long. So that was a big change right there. But then what's been really interesting is watching Brian Krzanich bring in some outside talent, something, again, that Intel just didn't do historically. And that obviously has rubbed some people the wrong way. A lot of senior execs have been leaving over the course of the last few weeks. But clearly a decision is being made that they need to run things very differently. Now, Stacy Smith, who's been on the job as CFO for nearly a decade, really stepping up to a lot more responsibility. They haven't said what that title is going to be. But as soon as they find a new CFO, Stacy Smith moves into this job where he's overseeing sales, he's overseeing the construction of fabs, really a lot of the most important jobs one can have at Intel, he's going to be in charge of. So it's a big step up for him from the already very important role at CFO. And indeed, at Intel, that CFO role under Stacy Smith has been a very important one, maybe more important than at some other companies in what it might have been. But Stacy Smith clearly stepping into this very big role at the company.
It sounds almost like a COO role.
It does.
Anand, there has been some discussion that Intel chips may end up in the iPhone 7, which would be the first time we're seeing Intel chips in an iPhone. Is there any truth to that?
Look, I mean, that's still speculation at this point, and this would be a huge coup on part of Intel if that were to happen. Look, they've got to fix the ailing mobile business. There are parts of on the call that Brian Krzanich talked about. He talked about elements of the PC client segment that are still growing, set-top boxes. There are areas that are still noteworthy and they still have growth, worthy of investment, etc. But you have to find those areas, but they're not as large as the PC segment. So the restructuring is to right-size that. With respect to the mobile business, they're well behind Qualcomm. From whom they've hired a senior exec. So there's still a lot of work to be done there, to put it mildly.
So, Corey, then what is the future of Intel? If it's not iPhones or mobile phones, is it the Internet of Things? What is the future of this company?
So I think that the Internet of Things is a big area of focus for Intel. Clearly, they've been talking about that for a long time. It's been a prominent feature of their annual reports and their investor meetings and so on. Of course they would like to be in mobile phones. Of course they would like to have the right chip for the iPhone. But I think that beyond that, when Intel makes plans, they plan so far out. You know, the fabs that they're building now, they're thinking of things that are going to be largely functional 5, 8, 10 years from now. So when they talk about this Internet of Things, it's really twofold. They want to be in those sensors that are on the devices, whether it's windmills or steering wheels, but they also want to be on the back end in the data center, the data centers that are processing all those mountains of data that the Internet of Things will generate. And they're already doing that stuff. So I think that that's something that Brian Krzanich really sees as the future of this company. And in the same way that this company went from making calculator chips to making chips for these new things called personal computers, I think they really see IoT as a whole new future of computing and a future for Intel.